Whoa. Morning.
Okay, everyone, it's 5:30. I'll call the workshop session to order. Welcome to all of you. First item is discussion and updates related to COVID-19 pandemic. Chief Smith.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Do have good news this evening. As far as the cases across the nation, across the state, and locally, everything's on a decline as far as COVID-19 and the Omicron variant. Total number of COVID-19 cases to date throughout the state of Texas, 5,366,964. On January 24th, which was the last time that we met, we had 4,978,176. Lampasas County has a total of 4,673. Our number last time was 4,128, and that again was here in the late part of January. The best estimate that we can come up with on active cases, we're having to base that off of going back 10 days in the data on an Excel spreadsheet now. I think I told you last time, they're not just giving you active cases anymore. They say it's too difficult to manage in that, so we're taking the new cases, going back 10 days, letting those cases walk off the books now in a 10-day count. And so with doing that, we've come up with 77 active cases here in Lampasas. And I apologize to you, I did not do the math for the entire state. I felt like Lampasas was going to be a pretty good thing in what we need to know here today. One of the things that I want to be mindful of with that and the low cases that we're getting, keep in mind, you have the ability now to go online and you can sign up for these free home tests that the federal government sends you. They've already had that discussion that they feel like a lot of these cases, people are doing this at home. Now that the tests are available back in the home, people are testing positive and they're not seeking any further medical attention due to the fact that they don't have severe side effects related to this. So therefore, those home counts, those positive cases are not being counted because they're not done as an official visit to an office where it's getting registered with the Public Health Region 7 or with the state of Texas. So keep that in mind. Total fatalities across the state now, we're over 80,000. We're at 80,988. Last meeting, we were at 76,904. So fatalities are still clicking right along with that, even though we're seeing a decrease in that. And you'll see here in a minute when we go through the hospitals, we still have a lot in the ICUs. The total cases are down, but the ICU cases are still up. In Trauma Service Area L, we're at 155, and that's compared to 223, which was 3 weeks ago. But the number that are in ICUs, 110 are in regular rooms, 42 are still in ICUs, and of those 42, 41 patients are on a ventilator. So still some serious cases out there as far as hospitalizations. Vaccinations by zip code, at least one shot, 6,201. This is up from 6,098. Fully vaccinated, 5,428. And then we've got 5,386 was the old number for that. Vaccines in Lampasas County, we have 11,028 people with at least one shot, 9,509 who are fully vaccinated. We have 3,569 people who have had at least one booster shot. At the end of January, one shot was 10,915 and fully vaccinated was 9,378. Last little bit of information I want to share with you this evening on doing some more research on this. I don't have the exact numbers for where I used to give you that number and the percentage of people that were at this age group and everything are still accounting for this many. But I can tell you this, if you're over the age of 50 and you contract COVID, you have a 4.766% of it ending in a fatality. If you're under the age of 50, 49 and younger, your percentage is 0.22. So it definitely is, as you get older and you have those other comorbidities that go along with it, that's where we're seeing the most impact. So here again, man, if you can emphasize to friends and family, older people that you know, man, get that vaccination. It really does seem to do quite a bit to help out. And that is the area where we're seeing the most significant fatalities in that. Do y'all have any questions for me?
What about our fatalities? Did you?
We're up to 80 now. I'm sorry, I skipped that. We're at 80 fatalities now.
Any other questions? Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
Next item, discussion regarding rainwater collection system at Campbell Park.
Happy Valentine's Day, Mayor and Council. Wanted to bring this item back to you on workshop agenda for discussion. This was something that was brought up in manager's report January 24th, and at the conclusion of my report, there was an indication that at least one or two of you wanted this back on the agenda. So here it is. Just as background, throughout the summer and fall, this, among many other projects, were discussed, and the approval for this project was given on October 11th by City Council in an amount not to exceed $200,000. The final contract price came in, I believe, at $174, $175, and that was inclusive of an additional slab for a future kitchen storage, some sort of enclosed space. On October 25th, it was also discussed again with no clear direction regarding the rainwater collection system. And again, staff in its update of January 24 provided an update on the pavilion just in general, as well as reminded council that the collection system was not included. We did include this item for tonight's workshop, as well as formal consideration in the event council wishes to provide that on the regular agenda. Lamco, who is the contractor for the pavilion, was asked for a new quotation, and due to some supply/tank scarcity since his original numbers October 3rd of 21, it has gone up somewhat. I believe the original quote was about $10,200, and again, this is related to the scarcity of the tanks themselves that has increased to $12,750. Certainly, depending on council's wishes, it's still within that $200,000 cap. We would certainly welcome your input. I do have at least the excerpted copy of the minutes that I can refer to if council desires, but frankly, we're interested in your deliberation and your discussion and your direction. There is a corresponding action item on the regular agenda if you'd like to provide formal direction to staff.
Was there a particular reason that there are two tanks being ordered?
One for each side of the roof, Mayor, I believe was the only reason.
Finally, I'm going to show my ignorance here, but how far will 5,000 gallons of water go in the type of environment they're looking at providing water for? I mean, do we need 10,000 gallons? Oh.
They have,
The question was,
5,000
right,
already.
the question was, do we need 10,000 gallons? I'm sorry, your mic was off, but I'll repeat your question. But I would defer to the community gardens, and I believe Janet's in attendance. If yes. She'd probably be better to answer that question than I would.
Quick question too, or well, just something to kind of think about if we did decide to go forward with this. I mean, is this something we could do down the road whenever there is not a scarcity, when we might be able to get a better deal here?
That I would be speculating if I answered that question. And Steve probably, McDonald of Lamco could probably better answer that. It appears to me that this could be an add-on, you know, as long as you allowed for the space to remain. But that's something we can certainly double-check with Mr. McDonald on.
Well, Mayor, I'm the one that asked it be put on the workshop, and originally I was a strong proponent of it because I think the city needs to do some investment in rainwater collection and other conservation efforts. You know, after discussing it a little bit with you today, and you told me we would have prices tonight, that's not a large increase, but as far as the overall cost, I'm not sure that in the long run, with the supply being like it is, we may get a better cost. So I've got mixed emotions about it. I still think we should do it somewhere in the long run. Now, whether we do it now or whether we do it at another time, I think that's up to the council.
And I had a question. It was a good question the mayor had because it does call for two tanks, you know, one on one side and one on the other. structurally, there's not a lot to do. So it wouldn't be much different if we did one tank now for the 5,000 gallons, see how much they used it, and then down the road, add the second tank as long as we left the space for it, right?
We, again, I would have to check with the contractor on that. I assume that could be the case.
Okay.
Any other questions that we need to know?
I don't have a question, but, you know, it's one thing I've looked into as well, is these rainwater collection systems and these tanks and whatnot. And I mean, I don't know if it's something that we could look at, but there may be a scarcity of getting new ones, but, I mean, I see them all the time on Marketplace and online and get some good deals that probably wouldn't be 12 grand, I don't think. And I don't know if that's something we could even look into, maybe, or talk about down the road.
There are smaller tanks as well. I just was wondering if we could invest a few hours and spend some time looking into that. If
Certainly.
it's smaller.
The one, and I don't think this is necessarily a basis for a decision, but the one, if council does not make a decision tonight, which is certainly up to you, but the ones that are on hold will likely be sold, and again, that's not necessarily a basis for a decision, but that's how scarce apparently they are.
Well, I guess my question was, and I'm sure, like you've said, you probably can't say it, structurally to the pavilion itself, nothing extra has to be done if we decide to do one or two. That's my question, because if it needs like extra guttering or, you know, some kind of, you know, directional stuff to get it to where it needs to go, then we would need to make that, I would think we'd need to make that decision.
I would not think so, but again, I would defer to the contractor on that.
When are we going to get to talk to the contractor again?
If council wants me to move forward and do that, I can do that.
Is he here?
Chris
Chris
Harrison has
is-
a
Oh.
comment to make as part of the.
Mm-hmm. 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 Right. That's what I was wondering. Okay.
Thanks, Chris.
Thank
Could
you.
I ask Janet a question? Janet, I can't, there you are. If you don't get the rainwater collection system, are you doing okay with the water that the city is providing for you now?
We are, but it makes a big difference. And I want to add this, that I have just completed a grant for $10,000.
Could you talk up a little bit?
Do what?
Talk up a little bit?
Oh, I completed a grant for $10,000 for the collection system, because it's not just the 2 tanks that the community garden is responsible for, it's getting it into the gardens. And so I asked for the $5,000 basically for the tank itself, and then the remainder, because I don't know how much it's going to cost to bring it into the garden. I talked to one of the contractors there at the pavilion, who mentioned that he thought the best way to situate the tanks would be on one side of the pavilion, back and forth, and have it come through underground to us and in a holding tank. That way, if we got so much rain that it filled both tanks, we'd have a holding tank for it.
Wouldn't that be a blessing?
Yeah. Of
So
course,
I'm
I would
guessing-
prefer the rainwater as to using city water when it costs us less. It would cost us less after the original cost of the 2 tanks. However, you know, it's not been extremely prohibitive thus far to use city water. It's just the quality of the water that concerns me.
I guess I have a concern as well, is how much would that cost, I mean,
To tunnel under?
to get it over there? Because, I mean, if we're saying, okay, let's spend $10,000-$12,000 on this, but we're just having water sitting there, I mean, we probably need to know the scope of the whole project before I feel comfortable saying anything or moving forward.
I talked to Derek Smith about it some time ago, and that was his recommendation, which I know is our responsibility once the water is in your tanks, that to get it into the garden is the garden's responsibility. That's why I wrote it for 10,000 rather than the 5,000 that for the tank itself.
Do you think you could buy a tank for the garden and be able to get it piped over there or pumped over there, depending if there's any elevation change, 4,000 or 5,000?
That's the assumption I have based on a conversation. He didn't do any, you know, we didn't know where it was going to be on the pavilion. We didn't know anything really, and so this was just a guesstimate.
Because that's just my hesitation, before we spend the money on this, the water's just going to be sitting there. It seems like a waste of money, unless we know how much it's going to cost to get it from point A to point B.
Well, the tanks itself will have an outlet. I mean, they're at the worst. We hook up hoses and bring it into the garden temporarily until, you know, enough funds are, once we know how much it would cost, we can go that route.
Anyone else have questions, comments? Thank you, ma'am. So, Finley, maybe we can get some more information from the contractor.
I think you will have an action item on this, and if at that time you can
Right.
make that direction, or certainly we understand what you're saying at this point as well.
Next item is discussion and updates regarding certificate of obligation timeline and potential projects.
This is frankly more of an update than a request for any possible action. I think coming out of our workshop on February 7th, staff felt like there was some additional questions that needed to be answered. We needed to spend some additional time with our financial advisor. Certainly you got one side of it from bond counsel, and I appreciate Mr. Fowler being here. I think that was helpful. I did discuss the timing with Jennifer Ritter, who said that she indicated that she could be here on February 28th. The other, $64 question, the crystal ball question was, where would interest rates be in relation to the issuance? And she felt like there was no rush to do it tonight versus the 28th, and the 28th, frankly, was open on her calendar. She's been very busy here at the end of January, first part of February. The Fed will meet in March, and there was no way for us to beat that regardless of when we decided or considered formal action. After meeting with Ms. Ritter on the 28th, we certainly will be prepared to give council the authority to move forward if that's your decision. Mrs. Ritter will have an action item to proceed with notice to start that 45-day clock, and she's included a timeline for your review. The project list will be further developed. However, the language of the project will be more universal, so we'll have a little more latitude in terms of the funding and the conditions of the use of those funds. And as we also discussed, and as our bond counsel mentioned, when you think about a dollar amount, remember that is a not to exceed. So if you go, you have a, a list of $4 million worth of projects, and you end up deciding, okay, we're only going to use $2 million, you still don't want to be, you can't go, well, let's put the notice out for $2 million and then have $4 million worth of projects. So that's something else that staff will begin to develop in terms of that project listing. It'll be very, very similar to what I gave you, although it'll be probably more specific in terms of estimates, but the language will be more universal to allow us latitude. You will have the opportunity at your discretion to proceed, and we'll go ahead and have Jennifer, unless there's objection or other comments, we'll go ahead and have Jennifer be here on the 28th.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
Everybody okay with that? Thanks, Finley. Next item. Discussion and update regarding the Lampasas Economic Development Corporation, LEDC, Business Park Roadway, and in Utility Improvements, Phase 1, base bid, and add alternate 1.
Mayor and Council, this is a follow-up to a pretty lengthy discussion we had on February 7th regarding the business park, water drainage, sewer, roadway improvements. As we reported to you at that time, the base bid came in about what was expected, about $2.1 million. The alternate came in about $600,000. As a reminder, the alternate, and I believe you have an exhibit in the packet. Did the map go in the packet? Yes. Oh, it did.
We also have
It's on the back.
and
So that is the alternate includes the roadway extension, the east-west roadway extension from the intersection to 183. It's that southernmost extension. And I think the EDC, in terms of their property and vision, would like to complete that. And that being said, I'm going to turn it over to the president of the EDC, and I believe Steve Hudson's also here to give you a little more information, and also they'll be more able to more accurately answer some of the questions that you might have about this project.
Welcome to you too.
Mayor and Council, happy Valentine's Day. You are the 6 people I dreamed of spending my Valentine's Day with. Never fun to come and ask for money. Nobody enjoys that part of it. However, it is with full confidence that I tell you this is one of the most important things on the agenda for the city of Lampasas. So I'm happy to come up here. I know that we came and spoke to you last July. I know Mandy, as always, did a pretty good job last week in presenting all of you with information. But I also know what it's like to sit on that side of the dais, and after you pull the trigger on, a dollar sign with several numbers after it, you're going to leave this room and people are going to ask you questions. And in the past, when we've had issues like this where we, as a council, wanted to go out and be sure that we presented all the information, we had staff draw up bullet points so that we had some talking points and the facts available to us when we found ourselves in that position. Be more than happy to have Mandy do that for you on this as well. But Mandy is spending her Valentine's Day with Mickey Mouse. So I'm here, you get me, and you get Steve. If you have any other follow-up questions, that's what we're here for. When referring back to the not enjoying asking for money, I believe in this project. Your EDC board unanimously believes in this project. We've discussed every option, back and forth, up and down. It's been a lingering thing for the city of Lampasas for a long time. It has come to my attention that the city was blessed with a significant amount of money in the American Recovery Funds to the tune of $1.978 million, I believe. The wastewater portion of this project is a little over $971,000 for us. I do know those funds can be used for this project, and I'm quite certain there's not another project that you could put those funds into following the guidelines that are set forth that's going to bring you the potential ROI that this project's going to bring you as a city. We have no more commercial development space in Lampasas. That business park is it. You're currently making no money on property taxes. Once it's commercial development, you obviously will. Not to mention the jobs that it's going to bring in. That's the primary jobs. It's a big focus of the EDC. You're also looking at utility sales, so you're gonna make money off of it once you spend money on it. And, I don't know how that's a bad thing for you guys.
Questions, comments?
If there was a contribution from the city to get this done, how quick are we talking about everything being completed out there? Like, what's y'all's timeline?
We're ready, we're at the point of pull the trigger, ready to go.
I understand that, but once you start, like, what's the timeline?
What's the timeline for completion on the project?
I need to double check the contracted amount, but I believe it's a 360-day project.
It's about a year or so? The award of the bid is set to be given on Wednesday evening. And then Mandy, she talked to us last week about, she's done a pretty good job of, there's a few folks that might be on the line.
Weekly, Mandy gets RFIs from the state on interested parties. Right now, I know that we've got a handful that are currently on the line, interested and ready to go. And like I said, there's no marketable commercial land in Lampasas. We don't have anything to offer anymore. And they're not gonna stop coming. You start driving south, they're coming. We always talk about wanting to control the growth, be smart about what we do. That right there is the opportunity for EDC and council to work together on EDC land to do that for the city.
One thing we talked about last week is Councilman Pierce and I both had the question of, well, it's been so long, why aren't we selling it and whatnot? And Mandy kind of changed, at least my opinion, and I don't want to speak for her, but kind of changed my opinion on there. And I think it's important to notify the public kind of what she was talking about. Can y'all talk a little bit more about what's going to be going on out there? Because it got me jazzed about it. But if I'm answering questions to the public of why are we spending money out there?
Sure. So first, let me address the residential, because I know that's, people have said, well, sell it to me, I'll build houses on it. Or why don't y'all sell some of it off and pay for your project and go residential? Please understand that that is not a subject that has been considered lightly by this EDC board. We have talked about it in depth several times to make sure that's not the direction that we needed to go, both financially and in alignment with our mission statement and our goals as a board. The goals is jobs, and you're gonna build houses and that's what you're gonna have. And that's not gonna generate an ongoing income or revenue beyond the residential property taxes that you put out there. In turn, if we keep some of the land for commercial development and manufacturing and those types of jobs, and then you're butted up against a residential neighborhood, then you're limiting yourselves on what you can even put in there beyond that. So we're kind of cutting off our nose to spite our face in those efforts.
What about rather than residential multifamily? Because what if we get the same project, at Windsor over here, where everyone that's working there, I mean everyone, but most of the folks that work there don't live here. And we're not making money off
With
of it.
only revealing what I'm probably ethically allowed to, there's several neighboring property owners sitting on G-Way, don't know.
And I'm not asking for any confirmation, but
Yeah, no, there's,
Mandy did a really good job of getting us stoked about it. And if people are watching this
that's
right
why we
now,
love our Mandy.
right.
Yes, no, there's neighboring property owners that are also aware of the need for housing, especially if we bring in a significant amount of jobs, so.
I'm sure that's what y'all talked about too, because there is no multifamily housing around here.
We talk about everything from, if we bring in a whole bunch of jobs, where are their kids gonna go? Who's gonna take care of their dogs? I mean, we talk about every bit of it.
Schools will be a big part of this. If there's, 1,700 homes built across the street, schools are going to be impacted. It's going to impact everyone's life when they start bringing in multifamily homes.
I
Mayor.
just feel like that $971,000 for water, wastewater to come out of what's essentially grant money to the city of Lampasas, that once it's complete, the city's gonna make money off of, that's something to be proud of. That's a smart way to spend your money these days.
Mayor, I've made no bones about where I stand on this thing. I think it's a necessary thing for the city in a growth potential. One thing about the alternate with bringing the secondary road in there with another entrance, you'll be able to move truck traffic a whole lot easier in and out. And I also think, and I'm pretty sure that it will induce TxDOT to make some changes out there as from the speed limit to the possibility of acceleration, deceleration lanes, left turn lane, several things that they could consider. And I think they would move further quicker if there is some goings on out there. I also believe what we talked about in the workshop, that if you put a big piece of equipment out there, the questions are gonna, and the phone's gonna start ringing.
Absolutely.
And I feel pretty comfortable that when Mr. Talbert was looking for land, a large quantity of land, back at the time, it was hard for him and Jack Clark and some of the others involved in it to be able to find this large a tract. And by being able to put this together, we faced some challenges with some of it from a utility standpoint, but nothing that can't be overcome. And I just think once it starts, it'll continue to grow, and I don't see any disadvantages for the city from my standpoint.
Thanks.
You know, some of the questions that we've received is why are we going forward with the add alternate when that wasn't part of our original scope? That's why this man is here, is to speak to you. I think you even addressed it in a previous item. Nothing's getting cheaper, you know, and it's proven time and time again. Every time you say, well, we'll just do that later, we always wish we'd done it before, because now we can't afford it. So if you want to speak to the...
On the add alternate, we looked at it, and what we really looked at was the base bid, and then sitting in meetings, we decided, let's find out what a contractor would tell us it's worth to run it out to the highway, rather than having engineering estimates. And so it's not a binding alternate, it's an additive alternate, and felt like if the contractor saw the quantity of scale, so to speak, on the dollars, on the pipe, on the materials, on moving in, the engineering, he might be able to give us a better price than if we did it as a separate project 6 months from now, a year from now, or whatever, or as a change order to his contract. And when we got the prices, we were pleasantly surprised that they were very reasonable, and we looked at what we've got available and said, okay, if the city is willing and could help us on that extra roughly $700,000 is what we need to make it, then we've got a home run. We've got a business park with 2 highway entrances, like Randy mentioned. We've got one exit out onto the county road. It opens up additional land, and I just wish we could do the whole thing, you know, even to the south, but I know we can't.
But it's nice that we have that grant money, because it kind of works out perfect, doesn't it?
Yeah, yeah.
I would also say that you're not going to get those unit prices
You're not going to get
with a
those
totally different contractor.
That's right.
At a
If
later
by
date.
chance the same contractor was not the successful bidder, you're not going to get the same unit prices. Things are going up weekly.
Well, and one thing about the park too that Mandy had talked about was we're not talking all just like manufacturing and whatnot. There could be some entertainment value out there too, and I think that's important to let people know.
The scope of what we're looking at putting out there or being available to go out there is very inclusive and very diverse. I mean, we're talking manufacturing jobs, we're talking professional offices, we're talking medical research, development. Those kind of things are what is looking to come here. Entertainment, retail, I mean, where else are you going to put it? Where are you going to put warehouses? So we're not closed-minded on who should come, so.
And to make it clear too, like you were saying, that grant money has to be used in certain ways if we're going to use it.
Yes, correct.
I would also ask that we do get a copy of the bullet points to be able to discuss
Absolutely.
this with.
Sure,
with the
I think
public.
that would be handy for all of you, because you don't leave that they don't want to know why you spent money, so.
Well, I know I missed the other meeting because I was in a conference, but I had been filled in on this, and I think that it's a win-win. you know, like you said, you're going to have a huge return on investment.
Well, happy Valentine's Day. Thank you.
Anybody else?
Anything else?
Chuck, Bob? I'm good with it. Everybody good?
Good, thanks.
Thank you both for coming. Next item up is discussion regarding field and drainage upgrades to Turner baseball fields.
Mayor and Council, I'm going to turn this over to Mr. Harrison here in just a second. We did spend some time reviewing the project and the need at last week with the chair of the park board, who is also in attendance if you had a question for Robin. And the mayor, we took a look at the needs as well as the proposed project. I think the one question that has been asked is, you know, what does the park board think about this? And I think that was one of the reasons that Mr. Harrison made sure Robin was in attendance at the get-together out at Turner Complex. I will, at this point, turn it over to Chris to fill you in on the project and the request, and I'll follow back up in just after he's done.
Welcome, Chris.
There y'all. So, did y'all get that part in your packet?
Yes, we did.
That way I'm not gonna sit up here and read this to everyone. This is Russell from Texas Multi-Chem. I reached out originally to several different contractors. I am the president of the board for the Baseball and Softball Association for the kids. We took it over a couple of years ago. And just to give you a little bit of history on that, we had, I guess the first year we took it over was 2020. COVID hit, shut us down. When we took it over from the previous group, I think the numbers were somewhere around 160, 70, 80 kids in the entire league. We were just over 500, right under 600 kids last year. I think Miss Keeney can attest to opening day last year, our first full season into it. We ran probably 25 to 3,500 people through the park. Just one day of playing baseball all day. We're trying to get it back how it used to be and get these kids involved. To say that the fields are in poor shape is an understatement. Myself and several of the men on the boards, with help from Iker's guys, we pulled a rabbit out of our hat to say that we made it through and made a successful season last year. I did reach out to several different companies. One, I like Russell. Two, this Texas Multi-Chem is a part of the buy board, so I did kind of do a little research on that part of it. Basically trying to get just the infields into good playable condition for these kids. We kept trying last year. We were hauling in material, trying to rebuild them after every rain. They don't drain right. There's a magnitude of problems, and we just are at the point where we need help. So they went through, I guess we met several times on site, went through shot grades to see what it would really take. My expectation, it was going to be several $100,000, and it wasn't. Their total price came out to be the $58,150. We do need an additional about $14,500 in material. That puts a grand total at $72,650 for the entire project. And what that gets is it rebuilds essentially every infield on the ball, on 4 of the 5 fields at that complex. I say 4 of the 5 because the 5th one is a T-ball field. And not that we're not overly concerned about T-ball, but their infield's in pretty good shape.
And you're talking about that little field that's the newest field that's out in the back, right? That's in good shape or not so bad shape? Like the 5-6 T-ball or the 3-4 T-ball?
The 3-4
The
T-ball.
3-4, okay.
So the other field that was built, what was that, 3 or 4, 5 years ago or something, It really wasn't even built. It was, we mowed the grass, put a fence up, and said, there's a baseball field. That's the one that we're, in this packet that we labeled as Campbell Field. That's why it also has a high dollar price tag to it, because that's our 10U field, and currently it is, it's just bad. I don't know how else to explain it. We have been making a lot of improvements the last several years. We just got through last week, I guess, pouring more concrete pads for the bleachers. We poured a retaining wall for some of the backstops where it's been washing out from the infield, so we did get that done. So we as a board have been trying to put back to the park as well.
Well, I'll just say
So
that
here
we
we
have
are.
mostly members on the council here who do believe in taking care of what we already have. And that being said, I asked at the meeting at the park if this was something that our crew could do. I think Chris Iker, is he still back there? I think you indicated we don't have the right equipment and that we could maintain it after this group fixes it up. Are you of that opinion too, Mr. Anderson, that we can maintain it?
I would say that there would be minimal things that would have to be done at any point in time. And that's only, anytime on baseball or softball fields, wind and water is your worst enemy. I mean, you're gonna have infill mix, conditioner that wash up onto the shoulders. Every once in a while, you'll have to come in and power rake those down. It's, you know, compared to this, that's a minimal cost. Every once in a while, you'll have to come in and do till regrades on the field because, of course, wind, water, and then when you drag them, you'll drag some of the material into different areas, and so you want to regrade it for positive drainage. So to answer your question, there would be some upkeep, small, and it would be sporadic. It wouldn't be
Okay.
yearly. All the other stuff, schools, little leagues, cities, all take care of that type of maintenance.
And we do that jointly. I mean,
Chris, did
the-
you say that you could maintain them? Is that what I'm understanding?
We don't have the equipment to do the
we
scope
just
of
have to
work that
get
they're
them
proposing.
maintainable, and right now they're not. They're, and it's past the scope of, you know, I can't bring in equipment like I've been doing because every time I'm meant to build roads. Every time I drive in a field, I have to work our way all the way back
Sure.
out.
Well, I have to say that, this has been needed for a really long time because, my kid's 28 years old, and when he played, it was a problem, especially on the little bit older field, that where they cleared all the stuff and they have the new parking lot behind it. I forget which one that is.
Turner.
I mean, it was in really bad shape and that was a long time ago.
One of the things Chris kind of alluded to earlier is, people just throw up a fence and a backstop and call it a baseball and softball field. Really, that happens 80–90% of the time. There's very little engineering put into even high school fields at the time. And when you have these situations like that, you have to come back in and address the issues you didn't address originally. One of the things that Lampasas Little League fields have is off-target water. The hill that sets up from that elementary that drains towards that. So really, after talking to Chris and us coming out several times, we talked about, building a drainage berm or a drainage swell to get that water off those fields. So the more that you get that water off the field, the less maintenance that you will have in the situation. You'll lose less conditioner, you lose less red dirt. And that's one of the reoccurring themes in Little League field is you get calls about, hey, I need loads of red dirt, I need loads of red dirt. Well, it's 90% of the time off-target water. The rest of the time it's good.
And this proposal doesn't target that off-site water, but I know a guy that's coming in there to do that, so.
Okay, the 14,000 that you just mentioned, is your association putting that bill, or is it
14.5,
included?
That's, like I said, we just got through pouring $7,000 worth of concrete over there. If need so, we can keep on going.
So we're actually looking at 72,000 instead of 50?
That's the total scope minus all the off-site water drainage,
Okay.
which is gonna be quite a.
Before we do any offset drainage or anything, we need to make sure we still are able to move the crowds around and are handicap accessible.
A lot
and
of
all
this
that.
is coming off of the street. You know,
Mm-hmm.
there's a cut off of Campbell, and it
Mm-hmm.
goes straight towards that Weeks field.
Yes, and
So we're
what
trying to
used to
burn
be
that
the
frontage.
Geico field, may still be.
Well, the Geico field's in the very far back.
I know, but that drainage ditch runs right by the restroom facility, or it did, and it stayed muddy in there the entire time.
Well, we got that taken care of. That's not as bad.
Not as big a problem as it was.
The good thing about it is once that issue is taken care of, you have enough slope over there that you're gonna drain water to that, that creek line fairly easily.
I have a couple of more questions, if you don't mind. One, has this gone before the Parks and Rec Committee?
Not
The
the
board,
board.
the
We-
board as it says,
No,
as it is, it has not?
no, we're
Thursday.
Thursday.
It is on the agenda for
It's on the agenda for Thursday. I've been trying to set this meeting between several members, including Ms. Gradell, since probably about November, between holidays and schedules and sicknesses and this and that. That's where we're at. We're trying to get this moved along and approval done, basically because our opening day is April 9th, and we're trying to get this done prior to.
So, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Is the Little League, our organization is not requiring these upgrades to be able to maintain and play in these tournaments in advance and so on?
We can't play in tournaments or do anything with the fields the way they are.
So
I don't know
we're
how-
still not available to do that,
No,
even the way they are?
not the way they set currently, no, sir.
Okay. But the way they were last year, were you able to?
No, we barely made it through a season. I mean, we were literally rebuilding and adding to these fields weekly.
But you did teams advance with their all-stars and
Yes,
those on the leagues?
I can't remember exactly how many teams actually made it into district. Myself, we played 14U baseball last year, which was the first time since I was in school that we've had a 14U baseball team. And for that, we went all the way to the state tournament with them.
But, so they've deteriorated between last year and this year?
Yeah, they weren't worth a whole lot last year, and yes.
But I mean, it didn't preclude you from advancing on with.
No, but also, that's what I'm trying to tell you. I was down there weekly with equipment, my guys, my board guys, and when I say my guys, my employees, personally, down there maintaining this field. And no, I will not be available to do that this year.
Well, and I understand that. I appreciate your support in doing some of those things. I was just asking, I wanted to make sure that this did not affect your ability to advance and so on and so forth through the Little League system.
Kathy?
So it did last year. I'm not through yet, Mayor
Well,
Ashley.
let's let Kathy have one, and then we'll come back to you. Kathy?
Okay, mine is pretty quick. Because you said that Robin and the Parks Board, with Robin being president, y'all are gonna meet Thursday. So y'all aren't asking us for an action item tonight, you're just telling us what's going on.
There is an action.
There is an action item,
Yes.
but it hasn't been approved by the board yet, the Parks Board yet? So how does the Parks Board feel about us approving something before it goes to them?
Typically, we would not do that. We would make sure it goes to the board first. In this instance, we just didn't have the time to do that.
Is it possible, Finley, to make a motion contingent on Thursday's meeting with the board without us having to come back and address this?
Yes, and that would be my recommendation, Mayor.
Okay. Randy?
The other thing is look here, it's a non-budgeted item, so council understands that we'd have to do a budget amendment, and you're willing to pull it out of CO money that's left over before we've talked about any other projects that we want to fund with that. I guess is a concern of mine. This has just come up. We haven't had any discussions regarding any of this. And that's quite a bit of money. And I was just, I wanted to make sure that it was not a necessarily required deal, but it was more of the wishes of the Little League Association to be able to improve these fields. And I certainly understand that.
I think a lot of it is to get them to play. So I guess I misunderstood your question as far as, basically, if this doesn't go through, how are we gonna play, or will we be able to play baseball on it? Yeah, I mean.
But it won't be up to what it would be with
No,
this,
I mean,
obviously.
a lot of it's the liability. I don't know how many of y'all have been over to the fields and actually looked at them. What I'm trying to do too is, like I explained to Ms. Monroe and Finley, and of course, Chris and I speak a lot about it, is just a lot of this fields are deteriorating so much that it is becoming a liability for the city to have kids on those fields. Not just with the fields, with the way that.
And I understand that. I also appreciate and want to do things for the kids of this community. I've wholeheartedly supported a skateboard park and some other things that try to find things for the kids to do. Some of my grandkids played baseball as well years ago, but and I've been out there, and there are a ton of people out there watching that thing and participating in it, and I think it's important for the city in the long run. I'm also concerned we don't have a real direction in regards to how Turner Complex I guess, mails in with the 580 Sports Complex.
It shouldn't even be
and
thought
all
of
of that
with it.
coming together.
What do you have at the 580 complex?
We have some baseball fields.
You have 2 adult softball fields. You don't have anything for the youth as far as baseball and
That's
softball.
not, that was not what I was pertaining to. I thought that we had a long-term plan of moving more fields and building more fields out there as well. I'm not against this necessarily, other than I have some concerns that it's just coming up tonight for us. And it's not been through the Parks Board.
No,
Any
I
other?
think that's my main concern.
Okay, Chuck.
Finley, is there a way of knowing on that Fund 68, is it broken out still by category of when we initiated those things? Do you know?
The expenditures,
Well, no, the ones that's, of the balance that's remaining.
correct,
Have we used up all of what was allocated
for
the
those
parks?
projects, yes.
Yes, we have.
Yes.
So this is going to come out of just a composite.
Yes, there's about $144,000 that remains in Fund 68 that could be used, and this project would qualify for the use of those funds.
Can you get this thing built before the season starts? You're already registered, right?
That question, we talked about this earlier. Clearly, April the 9th is the opening date. We feel confident that we can take care of that and get that done by that time. There are mitigating circumstances that are outside our control. You know, if we get bad weather, that could hinder that. If there was any kind of trouble getting the infield mix in, you know, that could be a problem. But we don't really see it as a major problem. The project as a whole, we would come in and we would spray the two coats of glyphosate on the 3 fields to kill the grass, which would take roughly about a week and a half to 2 weeks. Once that's taken care of, it is a 4 to 7 day job.
Chris, are they going to allow practices out there once this is done?
Once it's completed, but not during the construction phase of it.
We'll be able to maintain it then as they're practicing and so on and so forth, use during the week?
Zach has a question or comment?
Zach does.
No, I'm just hearing a lot of the same things being talked about, and y'all need this, right? And the kids do?
They do.
And we're gonna be able to maintain this? And we have the money for it?
Out of Fund 68? So does Fund 68, it's just a budget amendment, but it's there, right?
That's correct.
Okay.
In fact, I believe I put the balance sheet in your,
Okay.
Yes,
You did.
you did.
and as Councilman Clark said, this would require a budget amendment unless for some reason we were underspent in another line item, but it would be a matter of budgeting the income from 68 and then the expense out of the parks.
Any other comments?
And you don't see any issues with that, Finley?
No, Yvonne isn't here tonight, but she and I did talk about this, and we're both in agreement.
Perfect.
Anybody else? Other comments? Thank all of you gentlemen for coming up. Appreciate it. Yes, sir.
Outside the parks part, basically whenever you renovate a field, whether it's a high school field, a college field, or youth fields, you're trying to get three basic things: aesthetics, playability, and safety. And kind of from a previous conversation that y'all were having about growth and things like that, I'm an ex-athletic director, head football coach for 30 years. And so one of the things that you always preach in the school system is that people come into our schools to see our football field, our gym, and our baseball field. The city is very much like that. When you have tournaments or you have games, it's the outside people that come to see what Lampasas has to offer. And that's what they see. You know, they see that, and that's, you know, when your facilities have a nice aesthetic look to them, and they're safe, and they're playable, it just creates a better atmosphere, a better thought towards the community, and, you know, people will come in.
Thank you.
It's just quality of life deal.
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
sure.
Any other comments?
Yeah.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Appreciate you coming out.
I'm gonna hit the road and head back. I got about an hour and 15-minute drive. I've been married for 30 years. It's Valentine's. I'm gonna try to make it 31.
Be safe. Next item is discussion and debrief relating to the council work session held on February 7th, 2022.
Mayor and Council, if you'd indulge me, I do just have a couple of items to follow up with. The contract for the business park would be 365 days, so it's pretty close to what we told you. 365 days is a contract length from notice to proceed, and as the previous gentleman just said, of course, there would be some allowances for weathers, et cetera. And then the other item that we just talked about, certainly council could consider that on 7.9 of your regular agenda, but depending on what you wanted to do with materials, that amount would be $72,650, and then certainly I think council and park board and staff would feel more comfortable if you did have an affirmative motion to include conditioned on park board review and approval. On the item that is next on the workshop agenda, primarily we just wanted to follow up on the session that we held February 7th. I thought it was a very good discussion, although we only got through about half of our agenda. So what I want to update and seek council's input on is we still have a big chunk to deal with in terms of the comprehensive plan implementation. We also wanted to follow up on the previous workshop that we held the first part of December. What I would propose to council is dealing with a few of those items in workshop, like tonight or in a future workshop, and then taking another big bite out of it perhaps as early as April. And I would like to get your input on that, and if certain times in April were better or worse than others, certainly we'll come back to you in the next meeting or two to see if we can formalize that. But that's the input that we're seeking from you this evening.
Anyone?
Fine with me. Yeah, I'm good in April.
Spring break is in March, right?
March.
So get everybody will be scattered, hopefully a little bit.
Mayor, I think this end of the table's okay. It's the ones over here.
I'll be out of town the week of spring break, so I'll be missing a meeting anyway. But
When does our-
April's not, I mean, you just kind of have to plan around April, just random stuff.
Bring
So
back a
just-
few
just
dates
bring
in
a
April
date
for
in
you to
April.
consider.
Like Chuck says, I think we're okay mostly any day.
And everybody's still good with the format that these meetings have been going?
Absolutely.
Very good.
Did anyone want to take up anything tonight? Okay.
The big chunk was, I think, the business park, at least for me.
It was certainly helpful to staff as well, so we'll take this information back and start feeding it out again, and then look for a date in April.
Okay. Thanks, Finley. Discussion regarding any other item on the regular agenda? Anyone want to talk about anything? I'd take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Take what, a 10-minute break? You guys good with 10? 10 minutes? Chief Bailey to do a prayer for us, please.
Please join me in prayer. Heavenly Father, we thank you for this gorgeous day that you provided for us today. Father, we ask that you watch over our meeting and that you guide us and direct us as to your will. Father, please see that all that are in attendance today return to their homes safely. Thank you for watching over our community and keeping all safe and well. Father, we pray that you continue to guide us in every aspect of our days. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Next item is presentations and proclamations. We have the council annual presentation. And I'm wondering if we're going to get interest
Interest?
on our money? No?
Come on up here, Beck. This is, it's certainly an honor to work for you all. I can't tell you how much I appreciate the fact that not only do you spend your time here at meetings, but before meetings, at after meetings, spending time with staff on the phone to get your questions answered. The countless hours that you spend with residents, not only on the phone, but I'm sure everybody has a story about being caught in the grocery store aisles, talking about a city issue with individuals, or at church, or wherever the public finds you. I know they reach out to you and talk to you, and they in turn help drive your direction, your priority to staff. As I said, it's an honor to work for you. I have a great appreciation for you. Your compensation is not much, but we'd like to take the opportunity to at least recognize you about this time every year. And so I'll turn it over to Becky.
I'm just going to ask that as I call your name that you'll come down here in front of the dais and we'll get a group picture, okay? So we'll start with Mayor Monroe. Councilmember Caney. Councilmember Morris. You're welcome. Councilmember Mayor Pro Tim Williamson. Exciting and on the council. Councilmember Goodart. And Councilmember Clark.
It's not a bag of money. It is their annual compensation, $1 per year. We'll get a few pictures. Go ahead and squeeze in. Thank you, guys.
Next item up is service awards. Mandy Walsh for 5 years, who is not here, so we'll just say congratulations. And next, we have Felicia Viejo, 5 years. Item 1.1, we have citizen comments. Any citizen who desires to address the City Council on a matter not included on the agenda may do so at this time. The City Council may not deliberate on items being presented under this agenda item. We have no one. 1.2, citizen comments. Any citizen who desires to address the City Council on a matter that is on the agenda may do so at this time. Anyone? 2.1, minutes, discussion and possible action concerning approval of minutes of the regular meeting held on January 24th, 2022.
I didn't see any corrections, recommend approval.
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any objections? 2.2, discussion and possible action concerning approval of minutes of the City Council work session held on February 7th, 2022.
Again, I didn't see any corrections, recommend approval.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any objections? Consent agenda. 3.1, discussion and possible action regarding the second reading of an ordinance calling for a general election to elect the expired terms of council members places 3, 4, and 5 for the City Council of the City of Lampasas, Texas, to be held on the 7th day of May, 2022, providing for polling times and places, providing for early voting, and providing for bilingual election materials. 3.2, discussion and possible action regarding purchases and charges in excess of $4,000 from January 1 to January 31, 2022. 3.3, discussion and possible action regarding the December 2021 investment report. Does anyone wish to pull any of those items? I'd entertain a motion.
Recommend approval of the consent agenda.
I'll second.
Chuck, a motion, and Kathy. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any objections? We have no board reports today. Next up is City Manager's operational report.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Just a few brief comments. The memo is included in your packet for your reference. CIP, the first meeting of this annual cycle, will be on February 24th. We will spend some time talking about projects that were previously funded by council, implemented, the timeline, as well as the comprehensive plan implementation action steps. We'll normally meet about once or twice a month, preparing the report prior to budget season. Just follow up to the ice storm of February 3 and 4. Really, I don't have any bad news to report to you. I think the city weathered it very well. We did not experience any electric outages, either weather or grid related. Trash service was disrupted for the 2 days, however, was recovered the following week. We did keep City Hall open during that time. We did close early on Thursday. Had somewhat minimal traffic, but I felt like it was important to be available and open to the public if there was a need. No accidents in town, although we did have one near city limits, south on 183 and south on 281. And pleased to report that ERCOT maintained an adequate reserve during this event, which peaked Friday morning at about 69,000 megawatts. One thing I will add, though, so as they keep more generation online, either the spinning or the non-spinning reserve online, you have to pay for that. The market pays for that excess generation. So There is a cost to reliability, although I think anybody that lived through last year would say, okay, if we have to pay for some, particularly for some plants to be ready to come online, we'll do that. Skate park, just want to remind and invite council to be at the for the skate park design kickoff meeting February 22nd, 6 p.m. at the Hostess House. You're certainly welcome and encouraged to attend. Consider this your invitation. Highway designations, as part of your packet, you also have included a draft resolution as well as highway designations. These have been discussed previously, and this is for the South 281 project. These have been discussed previously at public meetings as well as with council. Although the last public meeting I think we had was well over a year ago. But now it's kind of getting down to, they're trying to get this project kicked off sometime in fall of 2023. Council will be asked to consider the attached resolution on the February 28th meeting. And again, one of the goals that we communicated to council and TxDOT communicated to council was to take a lot of that South 281 traffic off of the two-lane bridge that it currently is and take it up to the intersection of Key and 183 and then designate 281 to the north from there. So that's the major emphasis of the resolution that you will be looking at. 190 actually will also come down Omnis. I don't think there's going to be an address change for Omnis, but the impact could be on the businesses, and there are not a lot of them that have a 281 address, but there are a few businesses on 281 currently that will now be 281 business. So that designation from basically the bridge to the normal, to Key Avenue would be designated as business 281. Certainly, I asked TxDOT for an extra couple of weeks. I just got this last week, so we'll put it on the 28th in the event you do have any questions or if anything comes up to you from any of the businesses or folks that are adjacent to that. Inmate van, the inmate van has been returned to us, and we've been told that, it's going to cease now and in the future. As council may recall, we had great communication and great cooperation from the Gatesville facility to bring trustees down here to do community service. They really did a great job for us, helped us out. But in today's day and age of COVID, they have basically told the city that that program will cease. So we'll be seeking some sort of direction from council, if not in your comments after my report, maybe in a future agenda about what do we do with the 2011 Econoline van that's really in pretty good shape. Sales tax, February was 17.4% better than February of last year. That's about an additional $40,000 above what we did last year. And the calendar year to date is about 18%. So sales tax continues to be pretty impressive. Sewer interceptors, we did meet with consulting engineers on the draft sewer interceptor studies commissioned in 21. It identified the sewer drainage areas as well as assessed possible undersized lines, and I think the initial take on that is that we've identified those lines, but we still need more information. And so I think this will set us up to evaluate those areas that at least have been modeled as potentially undersized and get us to take a closer look at that. We also need to take a look at wet weather versus dry weather impacts to those lines. So as that program continues, we'll certainly, once the draft is completed and stamped, we'll present that to council. But I think it also identified the areas that need further study, and that's going to be our emphasis moving forward. Hannah Spring, we will prepare an agenda item for the 28th to hopefully begin the process for the removal of the top of the wall and the installation of period-appropriate fencing there. Just as a budget reference, in terms of memorandum that was delivered to council on August 13, indicates that we earmarked about $40,000 for that project. Pressure plane, we did meet with the consulting engineers on the upper pressure plane study, and I think they're still gathering information on that. One of the things that Mr. Jones did is spent some time with Becky and talked about potential areas, new development, what's within our CCN that is developable and could have an impact on future water pressure up there. We also additionally started this project and study to identify those future needs as well as the pressure fluctuations and impacts from the 580 Sports Complex irrigation. I think I've also shared, that there are a couple of interim steps, probably some work to the Spring Street pump station being one, and then how do we get more supply to that upper pressure plane. Planning Commission staff reports that they have elected a new chairperson for the Planning Commission. Dorothy Person assumed her role on February 10th, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Any comments, questions?
Thank you.
Finley. Next item is mayor's comments. There are none. Unfinished business, there is none. New business, 7.1. Discussion and possible action regarding a resolution amending authorized signatures for Austin Capital Bank, SSB.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Yvonne Marino, the Finance Director, could not be here this evening, so we're just asking that you consider this resolution. This is the City of Lampasas invest local funds with Austin Capital Bank. Any change in authorized signatories requires a formal change, and that's authorized via this resolution. So on this resolution, it's going to be for the Mayor T.J. Monroe, Mayor Pro Tem Chuck Williamson, City Manager Finley DeGraffenreid, and then City Secretary Becky Sims will be the authorized signatories.
I'd entertain a motion.
Move to
And
approve.
approval. Or go ahead. Probably shouldn't even vote.
Second.
Yeah, everybody.
We had a motion from Kathy and a second from Chuck.
Yes.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thanks.
Thank you.
I'm sorry that Zach does have a question. If you want to go back up.
Yeah, I just had a question real quick. Well, I was waiting for an opportunity to ask.
That's okay.
With that, does it require more than one signature of?
I believe it depends on the type of document that we have to sign. A lot of them, they do require 2 signatures.
Yes, it depends on the amount, so we have a threshold for 2 signatures. We automatically put 2 signatures on any of our checks.
Okay.
And then if it's above the $2,000, I think then we have the mayor or the mayor pro tem can actually also initials that check as well. Typically, if we're talking about trade transactions, that's sometimes even a 3 signature requirement. So, and of course, Yvonne cannot sign any of the signatures because of conflict, but typically it's the mayor, the city manager, or the mayor pro tem.
Okay, thank y'all.
Thanks. 7.2, discussion and presentation of the Lampasas Police Department 2021 Annual Racial Profiling Report. Chief Bailey.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Mayor and Council, tonight I present to you the Lampasas Police Department Racial Profiling Report. This lengthy report, the lengthy comprehensive report, shows the transition of the law since 2001. You'll find that from pages 81 to 133. I've also put an outline in there for you for the changes in laws. The report includes a submission of all the information that's required to follow the law. And in this report, if you had a checkoff box, you'd be able to just go down and say, our training requirements are met, that we have a policy that prohibits racial profiling. The report is in there, that we have a compliment and complaint process. We have a process for reporting racial profiling. We have a public education format, and by that we have information on the back of citations and warnings where a person can file a complaint. Also on the city website, on the city social media pages, there's a place where we inform people of where to make complaints, compliments for officers. We also have a brochure in our lobby, and a copy of all of this is in the report, that talks about how we prohibit racial profiling and the complaint process with that. We had no complaints in 2021 of any racial profiling. You'll also see that on page 191 is where we start our Tier 2 report, and that is where vehicles that are stopped There are certain criteria that we have to follow to report where the vehicle was stopped at, the race or ethnicity of the person that was stopped, and various other information, to include if a person was assaulted with bodily injury or that there was physical force with bodily injury in that. We had no reports of any physical force with bodily injury being used. Also in the law, it talks about body cameras, and if you have body cameras, that there is a policy that needs to be written and followed. There's also training that needs to be followed. And also, we also have a review log to review our body cameras. We also have a policy for in-car cameras, and we also have a review of video footage from those cameras as well. Criminal Code of Procedure Article 2.134 requires that we compile a report for you, an analysis of that report. You'll find that of the 3,540 stops, you'll find that we did percentages of the race and ethnicity of each of those stops on the Tier 2 report. You'll also find in the analysis percentages from that Tier 2 report. You also find that we have to provide by law the contacts, the searches that were done during that time, and you'll find that broke down by consent searches or custodial type searches, and then also for the arrest with that may have occurred. We compared it with the census of the city. We also compared it with the census of the state. We also provided you with the format for the Fair Road Standard and the reasons why we didn't break that all the way down by percentage with that. We found no major disparities in this report. So we submitted the report to the Texas Commission on Law Enforcement in January. Tonight we present it to you. That's another element that we have to follow by this law. We've also provided Judge Hoyer a copy for the County of Lampasas. Mayor, council, citizens, the Lampasas Police Department does not racially profile. The statistics that you see that you've been provided tonight are the raw facts, the true facts of our stops that we make. We don't sit in the briefing room and go, one race, one ethnicity has received more warnings or more citations than the other, so we have to stop, or we have to reduce issuing, or we have to increase over here or over there. What you see is exactly what we do. We go to work and we do our jobs with that. So with that, all I'm asking tonight is acknowledgement of your receipt of this report so that we can check that final box showing that we have submitted our report to our governing body.
So I need a motion to acknowledge delivery.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Chief, I did have one question.
Yes, ma'am.
It's about race or ethnicity known prior to stopping.
Yes, ma'am.
And it says that, yes, 85 stops, you did know. I was wondering, guys speeding down the highway, how do you see that?
Of those 3,540 stops, 85 were known. That could be, we knew that they had a warrant, so we stopped them for that warrant. We know that person, we know that vehicle, so we stopped them for that. Okay. Knowing that they had a violation. Or it may have been that we received a call in regards to the vehicle prior to, and we were unable to answer that call previously, but now we see the vehicle and there's a traffic violation. So we know that race or ethnicity in regards to that.
Thank you, ma'am. Appreciate it. 7.3, discussion and possible action to issue order of election for municipalities for the May 7th, 2022 general election.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. This is the second part of the ordinance that we approved calling for the election. This is just going to be the order of election, and this is the document that I'll have each of you sign that we're ordering the election to begin for May 7th.
Anyone want to make a motion?
I'll move to approve.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any objections? Any questions?
Thank you.
7.4, discussion and possible action regarding a veterans run and walk on Saturday, November 5th, 2022,
Mayor, Council.
starting at 6:30 and ending at 10:30 a.m. I'm sorry.
I apologize, Mayor. Mayor, Council, Jackie Bunce with the Lampasas Run Club. They presented an excellent run walk last year in relation to Veterans Day. They'd like to have their second run this year on November 5th, Saturday, November 5th, and they need our approval for that so that they can submit the information so that they can become a sanctioned USATF officially timed 5K run. This run is probably one of our simpler routes, our better routes, Chris again, better routes that we have. The run is on a Saturday morning with at a time when we have a lot less traffic on the roadways. The run walk we will lead the runners and walkers from the courthouse and back. We'll have officers and Citizen Police Academy Alumni Association volunteers assist with this, with the intersections and traffic control to ensure the safety of all. The route is from the courthouse west to 3rd to Chestnut, East Avenue A, Main Street to East 3rd, Western Campbell to G, then Northington and Standiford and Gamble, B, Brook Street, then East Avenue F to over to Hackberry, then 3rd and back to the courthouse. I'm requesting a motion to approve for the event and for our assistance with the event.
I'll move to approve.
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any objection? Any questions or comments?
Good luck.
Thank you.
Discussion, 7.5, discussion and possible action regarding the 3rd Street Roadway Improvement Project as it relates to change order number 1 for additional ADA accessibility ramps and other subsidiary work in an amount not to exceed $80,000.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. This is an item specific to the 3rd Street Roadway Improvement Project and the possible action regarding change order number 1. To give you a little bit of background, as everybody's seen out front, the construction's been ongoing for the last few weeks. Our contractor, who's Gage and Cade LLC, has actually made really good progress. We've worked with them diligently. Some of our staff has been out there daily as we construct this project. But as construction goes, sometimes there's things that are uncovered or there's things that need to be addressed, various concerns within the project. Initially, this project was to have ADA accessibility, and it does in certain intersections, but we wanted to make sure the continuity was throughout the whole project. And so the change order that you see in the packet that's attached is for $48,646.78. It does tie to what the contractor had bid. Those are exact bid items and what the cost, they agreed to hold their prices on the changes. The intent is there'll be 6 new ramps, 3 at Main, 3 at Chestnut, as well as subsidiary items, so items such as curb and gutter. There's some areas where we did need to address some sidewalk and some small areas, and so this change order is specific to that. The reason that we're recommending an amount not to exceed $80,000 is late in the week last week, there was at the end of 3rd Street and Key, there was actually kind of an unforeseen change as we were removing some pavement. Our flow lines there at the end of the street are a little too low after the contractor uncovered all the pavement. The engineer, we met with him. We've been working through, different iterations, and so there's 2 iterations that we're at now, which is basically as you come around the curb radius here by the old gas station at Key, removing a section of that and then, bringing the road up on that side. Currently, if you're out there looking, one side of the curb is higher than the other when you look at the cross slopes, so we're wanting to keep it consistent. Again, that was an unforeseen item, and so, you know, as we keep, you know, uncovering things, we just want to make sure that, you know, our hope is that we don't come back to council and ask for any other. I will say that the budget was, and actually the amount that was in the contract is $368,207. That's what's actually encumbered. We have a budget of $900,000 out of our capital outlay roads budget. And just as a note, this project was about $448,000 on the initial estimate with contingency, so we're still under that with this change order.
Right.
I'll stand for any questions.
I move to approve change order number 1 for an amount not to exceed $80,000 that includes subsidiary and miscellaneous items.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? We could ask questions now if anyone has any.
Sure.
I had a question. Okay, so is the 80,000 because you're expecting it to be another 40, almost 40 potentially for Key, or is it just because you know that Key's going to be in there and then there may be more when they get further down?
That's a great question, Councilwoman Keeney. The thought is right now on some rough, the engineer didn't have time to totally quantify what we're looking at up there. He's got a pretty good rough idea. And that really puts us, you know, between 60 and 70,000 where we're at right now. If we go ahead and we get the plans back and they're agreeable to that, the contractor's agreeable to the quantities. And so that's why we wanted to make sure we had enough in there. But yes, what we've shown here in this change order with the addition of the items that we found that we need to address, you know, should cover that.
Unfortunately, this is just like a remodel on a house. The more you uncover, the more problems you run into. I walked that in the other day with Ryan, and there is a tremendous drop coming off Key Avenue, especially in the curb and gutter on the south side. And it will help us bring that water down a whole lot better if we can redo the curbs. We won't have so much watermelon. And some of the corings I looked at, we had 8 inches or 6 inches of just raw asphalt, just stacked on top of each other. And so that traps water in the curb, and this will bring it up to the grade it needs to be.
Yes, sir.
Any other comments, questions? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
7.6, discussion and possible action concerning a request from the Kiwanis Club for approval of a license application to operate a circus within the city limits of the city of Lampasas, and to grant a waiver for operations near schools, churches, and private residents.
Hi.
Hi.
My name is Tasha Bates. I'm representing the local Kiwanis Club. I think you have the application there from the circus, and they've provided the insurance. The Kiwanis Club is just asking permission to get the permit, for the waiver. The permit and the waiver.
And the waiver is because you are going to do it on the school ground?
Yes.
Right, okay.
Right
Okay.
there by the Boys and Girls Club.
Move to approve the license application submitted by the Kiwanis Club Key Equipment Company to operate a circus within the city limits of the city of Lampasas and to grant a waiver for operations near schools, churches, and private residences.
Second.
Are there any questions or comments?
The school district's all in, right?
Yes.
Okay.
We got their permission.
Okay.
Signed an agreement with them.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you, ma'am.
Thank y'all.
7.7, discussion and possible action regarding the rainwater collection system at Campbell Park.
Mayor and council, this item was discussed in workshop, and we seek your input and direction on this item.
Well, I move that we approve one of the rainwater collection tanks.
Anyone want to second?
Second.
When it comes down to discussion, I mean, with a motion, with the budget not to exceed how much, or, I mean, it needs to be a little bit more specific.
Okay, well, I'm going to refer to, because basically it would be half of what we've got, right? The cost, because the proposal was 12.5, right? For the two? Yes, sir.
We would have to get back.
Let me go back and look.
Microphone. Chris, come on up.
Obviously, the rainwater is better for their garden. Obviously, it doesn't have the chloramines and everything that the city water does. Of what I know of the project down there with the pavilion and the art in the park and the setting, I can't believe I'm even gonna say this. Do you want 2 poly tanks sitting by this new structure in the middle of the park? They do these water collection systems, you know, with the old galvanized look tanks. Are they gonna be more expensive? Yes. Could you find some used ones? Possibly. I just don't think there's, in my opinion, what I'm seeing, nobody really knows what's going on. The slope that we're having to deal with over there, as close as we've set the pad for the building, I don't think we're gonna be able to set them right off on the ends of the building like they're expecting. I think there's a lot more to be looked at, and I'm not trying to sabotage your project. I just think there's a better way to get to it instead of just approving blindly some money for some poly tanks that I don't think aesthetically is gonna look well with that park and that setting.
Good point, Chris.
Unless you did pipe them away from the building and set them behind their garden that's there.
I wasn't thinking in terms of poly tanks. I've seen some down at the LCRA offices down there in adjacent buildings that.
Well, and that's the problem, is that this is a very broad, here, let's just go spend money on this.
And I'd like to find out how much
yeah.
Thank you, Chris.
I'd like to find out how the total amount to get the water over to the.
How about we delay?
May I withdraw my motion?
Sure.
I'm going to withdraw my motion.
Okay, let's delay it till we have more information, bring it back on another meeting.
Thank you.
Is that okay with everyone? Okay. Is that permissible, Finley?
Yes, ma'am.
But what do we have to do with the action item to do that? Can we just take no action and just
Correct.
wait? Okay.
Everybody comfortable with that? 7.8, discussion and possible action regarding LEDC Business Park Roadway and Utility Improvements, Phase 1, base bid, and add alternate 1, financial participation in city infrastructure.
I would like to move to approve the alternate 1 at the city's expense in the amount stated in the report.
Have a motion to approve.
I just want to say again, if we only vote to use the add alternate, you can't use that can't just be from the funds we discussed previously. If you want to fund the water wastewater portion, you can use the American Recovery Funds for that. So.
I thought the add alternate does not include the water and wastewater.
I think your staff would recommend that your motion include the amount you would like to allocate for this project, or the amount you would like to allocate for water and wastewater infrastructure.
I would like to amend it to say that.
And the dollar amount?
And the dollar amount. Do we have a total dollar?
And I'll second that.
Okay.
Can I get clarification on what the motion actually reads out?
Yes, please.
Let me get to that page.
He's motioning, isn't it, adding?
Consider a motion for the amount in the American Recovery Act to utilize on this project, and for the alternate to financially support infrastructure costs.
I think, Randy, you want to stop after project, because you are making a motion to approve
I'd like to approve this project however stated.
with a dollar amount.
Mayor, might I paraphrase or tell you what I think I'm hearing? What I'm hearing is that the motion would like to include funding for water and wastewater infrastructure in an amount of, the total amount that you could directly relate to the American Recovery Act would be $971,196, if you wanted to go to that amount.
Is that your amount, Randy?
That's correct.
Okay.
And that's my second.
We've got a motion and a second. Are there any other questions? We're moving to approve spending $971.
For water and wastewater infrastructure.
Right. Everybody good with that?
Which are earmarked funds that, with the American Recovery Act, we can only use for certain things.
Correct. The use of these funds do not relate to rates that are paid by our residents or businesses, nor do they impact our budget, our normal operating budget bottom line in any way.
We can't just use this money for anything.
That's correct.
Is what I'm trying to get at. And if we don't use it for specific projects that are outlined in the American Recovery Act, then the money doesn't get used.
Correct.
Okay. Good.
Good? Everybody good?
Yeah, what I had in here did not include the amount, so I'm sorry.
No, you're good. Thank you. Thank you, Finley, for that. And then
We'll need a vote.
we need a vote. Everybody in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Unanimous. 7.9, discussion and possible action regarding field and drainage upgrades to Turner baseball fields in an amount not to exceed $58,150.
Mayor and Council, depending on your consideration of the material, you may want to amend the recommended motion to include material in the total amount of $72,650. Again, this would require a budget amendment. However, there are funds available in Fund 68 to fund this project. You may also consider including in your motion that it is conditional upon approval by Park Board.
I move to approve the proposal, or move for approving the proposal to approve engagement of Texas Multichem LTD for Turner Field rehabilitation in an amount not to exceed $72,650, or in the alternative, or as long as the Parks Board approves it, contingent on the Parks Board approval.
This Thursday.
So we have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Any comments, any questions before we go? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Let's go.
Woo.